I think I will be able to land a conversation with Elon Musk over the next 3 years.
On this episode of the RCN podcast, Matthew Byrd and Phillip Ellering discuss the benefits of podcasting.
People that are willing to go try to do something that seems impossible have something to learn from. I always want to talk to interesting people.
I need to know more about this.
And then a complete transition to construction technology. We're trying to raise the tide that lifts all the boats.
Talking about somebody's early history opens up the opportunity for other people to relate.
Raw, organic, who that person is, what they're thinking. We're helping everybody understand the status of these technologies across all of those industries.
You always do the kickoff. Kick it off, Matt.
That's not true.
Yeah.
You do.
Well, when I do, there is no kickoff. We jump right in. Can I start with a question?
You may.
Since you have started podcasting, what has been the greatest benefit?
The greatest benefit of podcasting, there's two that come to mind. One, selfishly, is actually getting to just talk to a lot of cool people.
Mm-hmm.
Dig into their story and how they got to where they are. Like that, I love hearing all of that because, one thing we're trying to do with RCN is inspire more people to be innovative, inspire younger people to get into the built environment industries. And so by hearing the whole story of someone's journey to get where they are, if they're in one of those roles, some people, I think, don't care to hear all the way back to like how they very first started, 20 years ago. They're like, let's just get to the topic. Let's just talk about the technology.
Yeah.
For me, I like hearing the whole journey because it's like, okay, what did that person 20 years ago, what did they start out thinking that they wanted to do?
Yeah.
Even before college or then into college. Like, what was their mindset at that point? And then what job did they enter? How did that go? What did they like? What did they dislike? How did that whole path lead to where they are now, focused on these technologies or in construction or whatever the role is? I like hearing that whole journey because then again, if we're trying to inspire people back at the beginning, if we can hear their journey, we can say, oh, okay, so as a younger person, they were interested in drafting, and why? Well, because they had a parent that was in this or like whatever it is, because then we can use that information throughout everyone's stories. We can use those information to go back and say, okay, for most people that are in these roles, here were some key points that like inspired them or a technology or a moment or a person that brought them into these roles. So I love hearing that whole story for that reason. And then of course we still get into where they are now and the deeper, technology applications and how they're trying to build new innovations or, I think all of that and talking future is important, but that's my favorite part, I think, of interviewing. So that was one of the two favorite things from podcasting. The second is actually getting feedback from listeners, from audience that really enjoy the conversation and find them useful and find them informative and are building relationships, reaching out to people they heard. So hearing the content actually impact people in the industry.
What is a cool example of somebody giving you feedback about a specific episode and how they received it?
That's a great question. Let's see. I'm going to think about it for a second because I don't want to not answer that question. I've had so many people reach out, even recently, of telling me, I love listening to the podcast. I just found it, but like to narrow in and think of an actual conversation and which episode it was about and what they got, I'm like, dang.
At the third conference, was somebody coming up to me and saying, hey, I know you don't remember me, but I talked to you last conference. And I was like, no, I do remember you. And you came up to me last conference and you had talked about how our conversation, my conversation with Matt how that changed your life. And he's like, oh my gosh. And that was such a cool experience to hear that at our second conference. This guy coming up and saying, you know, I really connected with the fact that you guys were talking about getting into this and being honest, and that really helped him forward in his company. But to your point of like going back and talking about somebody's early history opens up the opportunity for other people to relate with. That's where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to get there.
Yep.
Sometimes that can be too overwhelming for people. So then they stop making steps. And to hear that that is on a lot of people's minds is comforting. And then it makes it
Totally
able for other people to continue to move forward.
I could talk about a lot of past episodes and how I saw some of that story too, but I'm really excited for a guest coming in this week. Merritt is coming in. And again, if we just jumped in and started talking about what she's doing today, would be cool around extended reality stuff, augmented reality stuff. But to hear the journey of like, I went to school, I became a lawyer, or I'm working in legal.
I need to know more about this.
And then a complete transition to construction technology.
Yeah.
That story is way more interesting. It's very unique. Why would you transition? And then the listeners of that episode, it opens up your mind to not just like, oh, AR can be used in construction, but it also goes back to like, you can make a complete career transformation into something else you're interested in.
Yeah.
That's also a really cool aspect. Yeah. So throughout the whole episode, if our goal is full story, background, how they transition, what they're doing, what the technology, like we have the ability to impact more people than if we only focused on the tools.
Yeah. Agreed.
So I love that. It's fun. Yeah.
Is there anybody that comes to mind that we don't have in the queue yet that you're looking forward to?
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
I'm pretty interested to talk with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. He didn't schedule yet.
Okay.
But I would say, let's see. I'm going to predict our timeline here, okay? I think I will be able to land a conversation in some capacity with Elon Musk over the next 3 years. Yeah. Yeah.
His impact on my son in particular has been very profound. Yesterday, I think I heard Tesla Cybertruck about 700 times. No joke.
Yeah. And he's one that there's a lot of people that like him. There's a lot of people that don't like him. There's a lot of, maybe things he's done that are great. Maybe there's negative. Like, I always want to talk to interesting people. I don't care if they are, if they have a good name, a bad name, they're, whatever the press about them is recently. Mm-hmm. I don't really care, because I think I look at learning, no matter what the medium is, you always have something to learn from everything. Yeah. Whether it's a book, whether it's a movie, whether it's a business person, it doesn't mean, oh my gosh, that's my favorite person and I love everything they do and everything they say. But when it is somebody that has successfully launched multiple companies, has done things that nobody else has done. Like, he is so far forward in innovation with Tesla and the things they're doing there with energy, and with SpaceX being a company, outside of NASA. Who else is going out and starting a space company, launching rockets and designing things that have never been designed before to re-land them? And just so far forward thinking that so many people would never attempt to do that, because it's going to be expensive. It sounds impossible. People that are willing to go try to do something that seems impossible, I want to get inside and talk to them about, how and why. And I think there's so much to learn from those types of people.
I'm Elon. Ask away. What would you ask?
It's a good question.
All right,
There's
Matthew.
so many questions.
Yes.
Similar to all the other people I enjoy talking with, which is funny, right? I'm sure there are so many interviews with him out there, and I've seen clips of them and stuff, but I've never sat and I've never found one or sit and watched a full interview on his journey or life. Like, I don't know. So I would do the same thing I do with everyone, and I'd want to start a little bit further back of like, when you were younger, what were some of the things that really piqued your interest? What were you interested in and excited about? What was the first job you thought you wanted to pursue?
Yeah.
And then what did some of that early journey look like? Like, I just following that whole story again of interests, career path a little bit.
Yeah.
Some of the things that made major transitions for him, like learning some of those key points.
As you're talking about interest, my mind goes to like Steve Jobs, and there's a great story about him contacting the head of Hewlett Packard and saying, "Hey, can I get a motherboard?" And then the guy's like, "Who is this kid?" What I would like to ask, or someone to ask these people, is what was it within the thing that you were curious about that you were gamifying? Because I think that is the difference between somebody who becomes great at something and somebody who's just like, passing hobby or fascination, is that in some way they're playing a game to get better at something through their natural curiosity. And it's like, what was it that you were really like, I need to know this, and what were you trying to get after?
Yeah.
And what did that look like for them?
Yeah. And I think another interesting part is always their why as well, because for the most part, people that have built successful companies, their why was not just to build a successful company.
Sure.
It was not because I want to be rich. It was something else. And I know for Elon Musk too, part of his journey has been, yes, building something new and massive and innovative, and he's one of the wealthiest persons on earth, but he also has nearly gone bankrupt multiple times, slept on the floor of his warehouse. So when you're in that role, there has to be a big enough reason you're doing it and willing to suffer and get, and it's not typically just the success of a company. It's like, do you believe so much in the energy portion of what you're building with Tesla, you're willing to do that? Do you, for SpaceX, do you really believe that we're going to be living on Mars? And, what does that time frame look like? Like, what is the true belief behind some of the reasons you push these things so much and push ahead? I think those would be very interesting conversations. And the other thing about conversations for me is sometimes it's hard to answer the question of what do I want to ask, because I don't like to even pre-think about a conversation.
Sure.
I don't like to really prepare all my questions. Because I feel like when you get in a conversation with someone, it starts to just organically flow. Mm-hmm. And like, dependent on the feeling of how that person is even just starting out, like it, and how they carry conversation might spark the more interest in one way than the other. Like, I like to just sit down and talk.
Yeah.
So I feel like that would go in a lot of directions that you just wouldn't really pre-plan for.
Do you ever bullet, like have a general idea of ways that the conversation can go?
Sometimes. Yeah. For the most part, I feel like the style of interviewing or podcasts that I've done so far follow a similar path, so I almost don't even really need bullet points.
Yeah.
If I know the type of person that I'm talking with or a little bit about their background, like I do a little prep on just who they are, then I feel good enough to just flow with it. But there's been reasons that sometimes I feel like prepping questions, or at least having backup questions, because there's also a lot of people that are not great at being interviewed, or they're just not even all that conversational. They step into a podcast or a conversation as opposed to it being a conversation, as it being an interview. They just want to be asked a question and give an answer. And it's like, so then I have to have a lot more questions prepared, or it kind of gets stale. So I have started to prepare some questions as more of a backup. I honestly don't typically end up really using them.
That's one piece that I don't hear a lot about from the interviewer's perspective, is that, like, how do you counteract that? So that's a good point of, like, just having more questions ready if the person is just, I'm going to answer this and then bail.
Yeah. Yeah. In general, I think there's more value in letting everything be organic in every conversation. I mean, in everything, in presenting on a stage, in having a panel conversation, in doing a podcast. I personally, being the one helping run them, prefer it to be unprepared.
Yeah.
There might be times that that's a little bit messier. There might be times that there's more stumbling, but you don't have a bunch of people that were just prepared with something memorized. Like when it comes to, and I've done this at other people's conferences, I've done it at our own. I just got back from doing one. For instance, hosting a panel conversation. Mm-hmm. And you've got multiple people on the panel and somebody's helping moderate it. I would rather have somebody in that moderator seat that is very experienced with the overall topic, so they know how to help steer the conversation. Mm-hmm. But I would rather not let the panelists know every single question that's going to get asked and who they're going to be directed to. If you have good people on the panel, you don't need to do that. And then the content and the conversation and the back and forth that will come out, if it's organic and they have room to talk, and it's not like, no, you got to wait your turn, you're assigned question number 4. Like, it goes so much further. Mm-hmm. There's conversation that happens on the spot that also wouldn't happen if it was direct questions. Same reason I said a second ago, like, I don't even sometimes know the questions I want to ask until I get into the conversation and I hear something, and then I'm like, wait, now that I heard that, I'm curious why that thing, or why did you make that decision? I wouldn't have been able to prepare that because I wouldn't have known they said
right.
So the organic piece lets you dig in based on the perspective, the feedback, through even those panelists, and giving them the freedom to say, look, you don't have to only sit and wait for a question. If panelist number 3 is giving his feedback to a question or a thought, and that sparks an idea for panelist number 1, then I want you to build on that, because now we're continuing to build some active, organic deep dive on that topic based on your guys' expertise. So if you only filter it down to pre-built questions, you are restraining the ability for that group to really share their expertise. You're putting a filter on them and saying you're not allowed to answer certain questions. I just love the organic stuff.
Okay, now where did that start? Where you started identifying, like, I like that organic flow?
To be honest, it comes. I'll even say it's not a direct answer to that yet, but this even goes.
Let me not answer your question. I like this one better.
I will answer it. Maybe it partially is answered here. I think it goes the same for me when it comes to, like, marketing content, or when I go to write something based on a thought I have on LinkedIn. I don't always prefer that it is a practiced, perfected, perfectly written, proper grammar, I like to write the way that I think. Mm-hmm. I just want to share an exact thought, the exact way I have it, though organically, and get it out there. And sometimes that comes down to like, if people wait for things to be perfect, you would share way less thought. You would share way less content. And then if you think about even videos, this is something Gary Vee preaches a ton, and I find that I enjoy following the content of this style too, where it's like, if you find a social media page on Instagram and everything is just beautifully produced, you can see that it was scripted, you can see that all the captions are perfect, and you can see that you're like, okay, obviously, like, I don't even know if this person knows what they're talking about. Like, it seems like they're just following a teleprompter. I don't know. If it is a raw, on the go, from a phone recorded thing that someone is conversing about, that is them. That is their thoughts.
In the moment.
It is. It's in the moment. It's behind the scenes. It's on the go. I prefer that content, even though the other has a higher quality to it, and it's got the music and it's got the well thought out. I prefer following the on the go content, the documenting as opposed to the producing. There's obviously room for all of it, and I think there's types of content that should be fully produced, totally thought out, well strategized, well written, like absolutely. But to me, I think a lot of content should be the same way as sitting down and having a conversation with somebody. That's the overall like preference for me when it comes to conversations, to writing, to posting, to sharing, is that just raw, organic, who that person is, what they're thinking, on the go.
I love that. Several examples, I won't go into them, but several examples come to mind where I'm like, oh yeah, some of the more valuable conversations that I've heard from people that I admire, look into, are like this dirty camera of like, oh, they're about to say something good, I better grab it, versus like, okay, we set up for this shot and we're doing this. And it's because those people feel relaxed enough to be themselves.
Yeah.
Versus the version of them they feel like they have to be while they're on camera.
Yeah. And I don't like being on camera. I definitely don't like the documenting as I go, like doing the FaceTime videos, doing live streams. Like, it's uncomfortable. It's weird. You're questioning what you're saying and what you're doing, and if it's giving value. Like, it's not an easy thing to do either. So it's a thing, it's something that if you're going to do it, you got to learn how to do it. You got to practice it. You just have to do it. And that's a lot of things in life in general, and especially in business or growing something new, is you have to be willing to be bad in order to get good at it. You have to do something that's uncomfortable if you're wanting to grow a skill in an area you don't have, because you can't just defaultly be awesome at everything.
Yeah.
So many people see videos we do and conversations from podcasts, and they're like, man, you're so outgoing. And I'm like, you should see me at the conference I just went to where I don't know people. I don't walk up and talk to anybody. I am shy. I have a hard time starting conversations. I don't like approaching people I don't know. I don't introduce myself. I don't start conversations. Nope. That is a big weakness of mine. That would blow most people's minds. They think because I have a conference, because I stand on stage, because I talk on podcast, like, they think that's just, oh, you're just good at that. That's comes naturally to you. I'm like, no, it doesn't. I've had to force myself to understand that some of it I need to do because that's my role. Like, I have built an audience. I have built a platform. I have expertise in an area a lot of people are interested and need help in. So I've chosen that this is a way I can make content that impacts people. So I'm willing to do it. And I'm growing in my skill set of, okay, when I step on a stage, I'm completely comfortable. I can stand in front of 50, 3,000, 20,000 people on a stage, and I'm completely comfortable because I've given myself the freedom of like, be organic, share what you believe. It's okay if you stumble. It's okay if you're not great. I can do that on a stage, no matter what.
Okay. In addition to that, I would say something that you brought up before we started recording, video at least, was having a strong enough why. And your intention going in, I think, is the driving force for you being in those situations and then being completely calm.
Yeah.
Can you expand upon that?
My biggest why for the content piece and the talking piece and the presentations is helping people. Mm-hmm. Over the last several years, I've had enough people that I have completely helped fix their business or help build a project successfully or helped them out of a problem that's why I knew starting RCN was going to be successful, is that there are so many people on their journey around these things that I do, around scanners and drones and point clouds and BIM and understanding all these technologies and the ecosystem and how to make them work. There's so many people failing there that they're looking for someone to help them. And I've built some of the expertise to be able to help them. So I know when I go on stage to talk about these technologies or the innovation behind them or why we need to adopt them, or I know that it's going to help somebody. So whether I'm uncomfortable doing it or not, I know that it's going to be valuable to someone. Therefore, doing it is the option.
I love that because the example that comes up as you bring that up was I was interviewing somebody at Geoweek, and I'm miking up this guy. I'm about to get him on camera. It's just him, and he's like, "Oh my gosh!" And he's like starting to get nervous. I'm like, "Oh, you don't do this?" He goes, "Oh no, I get in front of groups of 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 people. It's this that I don't like." And I'm like, "Whoa, hold on." I'm like, "This is a rarity." I'm like, you can do that, but you can't do this." Exactly what you said. In that situation, I know why I'm doing it. It has nothing to do with me and everything to do with the information that I have learned.
Yeah.
I am completely confident that I can help these people. I know where they're at. I know where I'm at, and I'm confident in my expertise and ability to translate that information so that they can get help.
Yeah. And the other part is there's a big difference between if someone's going to step on stage and speak or give a presentation, they know exactly what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. That's like they've practiced it, they've laid it out, they've built a presentation, whatever that scenario is. That, again, is practiced, it's rehearsed, you're comfortable with it, and you're not getting questions you weren't expecting, typically.
Yeah.
Versus having a conversation or being interviewed, or you have to be comfortable like, okay, I don't know where this is going to go. I don't know what all you're going to ask me. There's going to be things I have to think of off the top of my head. That's a very different
skill set.
Yeah, skill set, comfort level. And some people do need the structure. Yeah. Though I love not preparing all the questions and telling everyone what I'm going to ask, I also know I've been interviewed. Sometimes I get asked a question that I wasn't prepared for, and I have a hard time thinking of an answer. I don't want to look bad for that reason. Like, I don't want to just sit there and go, I don't know. So I think I understand that there's also different people, right? People operate differently. Some people really need the structure and they need a little bit of time to think about something, and they're going to have an amazing answer. They're going to have an amazing insight on that. And some people can do completely fine off the cuff. So I think everything, when it comes to speaking, presenting, telling stories, people do it in different ways. All of them can be impactful. Mm-hmm. You just have to do it and figure out what works for you.
What topics or industries or specialities within reality capture would you like to dive into next?
Several of our presentations at the conference this year are around reality capture's role in building digital twins. And I'm starting to see a lot of big organizations want a strategy in place to be able to start digitizing and building digital twins of everything they own. Mm-hmm. That is a huge need. There's a lot of gaps there. There's a lack of education there. The ecosystem's a little broken and siloed. So the conversation around large enterprise reality capture programs and digital twins, that is a big piece, and it will be a big piece for a while. It's just going to grow. So that's not necessarily a specific industry, but some of the industries or types of companies for things like that, large oil and gas facility, owners, large warehouse and retail owners, because all of those major companies have tens of thousands or maybe thousands of whatever their asset is, whether it's facilities or warehouses or storefronts, and everyone's trying to figure out more about what they own.
Yeah.
And they have to have this data to utilize legally in the sale of a building, in occupying a space, in submitting and doing redesign of a property. All of them have these reasons for needing data, needing access to data, needing measurements of assets, needing to be able to show teams data, needing to simulate things. And so this whole vision around reality capture and digital twin ecosystem solves so many problems for every major asset owner across every industry. So the growth of these over the next several years is going to keep growing like crazy. Yeah. And today, I keep saying it, today, the industry is not prepared to deliver what the world is going to ask of these technologies in the coming years. If we don't spread enough awareness, get more people into it, get people trained, grow our ability to provide the service, to create these, today it couldn't be done. Mm-hmm. There's just not enough skilled people that are in this specialty.
Yeah. The example that comes to mind when you bring that up is Kelly Watt talking about DFW airport and what they have already identified as, this is where it has to go.
Yeah.
So that we can have like in real time access to all the information about this place and how that safeguards, tragic accidents that might pop up like that. And if you had access to that information in a digital space, that could save lives.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yep. Yeah, there's so many benefits that come out of it across industries, from the safety improvements to the reduced waste in construction materials to the reduced timeline of schedules because of the reduced amount of mistakes and errors. And there's just so many benefits that come from these ecosystems that there's no way that it doesn't become part of the normal of the future.
Yeah.
Like, there are still currently requirements for people to submit packages of PDF drawings as the final approval. Like, that will go away in the future. Mm-hmm. And it will all be digital twin requirements, digital models, point cloud data. Like, it will become the standard in the future for almost all of construction. Today, it's not. In the future, it will be, which means, again, the adoption and growth of these technologies it's just going to keep scaling. So there's a very high trajectory on the applications for these and the use of them.
How do you foresee AI expediting the required scale that is happening or that needs to occur? I
mean, AI is very broad. I think the biggest application is software companies integrating AI in a way to extract more information from the data that's being created faster and more direct. And the simulation piece and the analysis piece, like, that's the biggest application for it.
Yeah, definitely. Because there's only so much one human being or even a team of human beings going through that is just way too much of an ask.
So the opportunity even to become a software provider, like the opportunity for startups in this ecosystem is massive. The ability to have a team sit and brainstorm some of the issues in a specific industry or market, or a gap in like how this data is solving this problem, like there's so much opportunity for softwares and for hosting and viewing and analysis and extraction. And like there's going to be a lot of new things, I think, coming up in this space, because you can get pretty targeted of like, let's create a software that just takes data in to produce this type of deliverable to solve this problem for this industry that makes it 10 times faster than what happens today. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So let me, on top of that, you're talking about startups, and obviously we are launching RCN Ignite. Yep. What startup would you like to see, given the perspective and the need from your perspective? What ideal startup would you like to see pitch?
Yeah. So starting RCN Ignite, the startup pitch competition, the goal of that, to be honest, I don't know how many startups are already out there working on a solution. We know a lot of solutions and companies that are focused around these technologies. And there are other industries that a lot of startups are focused on, how to create some other new social app or do something else. My biggest goal with this startup competition is to inspire new creative people and programmers and developers and really brilliant people to see this industry and to say, hey, maybe we weren't ready this year, but we see that this is a thing. We totally want to compete in that next year. So this year, we're going to start brainstorming what problems can be solved and build a solution to pick. Like, I don't know who all's going to be pitching and applying and all that this year. My biggest interest is that, attracting new development talent to focus on built environment problems and ways to use all the reality capture data and tools and imagery and AI. And so, because I think that's the biggest area for opportunity. There are so many hardware devices, so much data being captured and created. We need more creative people to come in and develop solutions that can utilize all this data that's being captured. Reduce the file sizes, speed up delivery of data to people, pull out certain information from point clouds, classification, splitting up data, automation. Like, there's so many areas that someone could create a solution that could use this data. So I think that's the overall reason for the competition, and my hope from it. It's because, to be honest, I don't think there's enough startups in this industry. I think there's several, and I think there's some people that recognize the opportunity here. But if you look up startup competitions across the board, they're all focused on other things, like trying to come up with the next great product, sponge. I don't know.
Right.
Social video game on your iPhone app. I mean, everybody wants to create something and they want to make it big, and they hope, and maybe they can become that one-off unicorn that makes it really big by creating the next Angry Birds. I don't know. Right. There is opportunity over there, but there's also the construction and the built environment industry is a $1 trillion building everything industry that you don't have to be the one-off unicorn that made the next big game. There's so many areas of the built environment that could be improved. If we can inspire more startups in this space, I think more of them would become successful companies than trying to compete with the rest of the world.
That's a great point. And I would say our panel discussions and our speaker discussion or presentations are a great starting point to inspiring those people. Like, oh, they're talking about this problem. They're talking about, two softwares that, oh man, if they only spoke to each other.
Oh, if only.
If only.
Yeah.
And that's where it starts. I mean, I've seen it time and time again in different examples in different industries where it's like, oh, you just need the proper inspiration and the person in that room.
Yes.
That's like, oh, I can totally do that.
That's another benefit out of the podcast and out of our conference, the presentations, the panels, the information we're creating is so valuable to the industry. We're helping point out the things that are going really well with the tools, because we're seeing case studies on how this laser scanner and drone was combined to capture this type of asset. Like, we're showing successful use cases of technologies, and we're having honest conversations about the pain points and the difficulties and the failures, and that if you listen to the podcasts and you watch the webinars and you watch the presentations at the conference, you basically have all of the current status of the industry. Because the diversity of people we talk with and the industries they're from, we are gathering snapshots of all of it. From airports to roadways to mining to forensic. Like, we're helping everybody understand the status of these technologies across all of those industries. So you can use that information to decide if your company needs to shift direction to start servicing a certain industry, if there's a gap in the integration of these softwares not talking, you can listen to that information and you have so much knowledge to decide, I want to get a job in this type of company. I see a need here. It's so much value if you think of it in that way.
Yeah.
Like, go study the information that we're creating.
Yeah.
You're going to have so much knowledge about this ecosystem. Nobody else is creating that. And that's why we're focused on it. That's why the podcast started in the beginning, was people want to know, how is laser scanning helping buildings? Like, how can I use it? How long does it take? How much does it cost? What are the problems? Can my whole company use it? Like, people have questions about these things. And typically it's like, you're either calling someone and having a one-on-one conversation, or we can help build a community that shares all of that information. And so over time, we have this whole library of information that helps people learn. It becomes very, very helpful.
Yeah.
Which is why I also encourage other people to do it. Like, other people that start a podcast in our industry, they're like, oh, sorry, I'm not trying to compete with you. I'm like, I don't see anybody as competition. My whole goal is we're trying to raise the tide that lifts all the boats for the built environment. So if you're contributing to that by also starting a podcast, great. Let's collaborate. Let's share guests. Let's invite you to our conference. Let's meet each other. Like, there's so much more benefit that comes from collaboration with people than ever picturing them as a competitor.
Especially in this industry and given the, like, what needs to occur and where we're at.
I really, truly believe that. Even if they're in your backyard, even if they live next door to you, even if they're doing the exact same service you're doing, if you change your mindset to be less focused on competition and scarcity mindset and model, and you start to realize there is so much opportunity in the world across different industries, that unless literally the person is like trying to compete on every single project you do and you hate each other, like, you should just remove competition from your mind, period. I have done that and seen major success from it. In everything. As owning a survey and laser scanning company, I didn't see any other survey or laser scanning company as a competitor. I saw them as a potential person to collaborate with. And what happened with my business? All of those people hired me to collaborate with them because I stayed honest. I wasn't going behind their back trying to steal clients. It was just like, look, we do similar things. There might be times that you're overworked and you need help. Or maybe there's an expertise I have around this control process that you don't. I'm willing to share that information. I'm willing to help you. I want you to be successful. Just, if you ever need help, give me a call. building that relationship in a way that was collaborative, that was like, hey, you can just call me. I want to help. I want to help you be successful, even though you are my competitor.
Yeah.
That changes their mindset to go, hey, that was nice. I actually need help. I'm going to reach out to you. And it just continued to build that throughout everybody that I worked with, that most of my clients were people that technically were competitors. But there's so much opportunity that again, that goes for everything. I've seen the same with the podcast. I've seen the same with the conference. Like, people had seen a conference called Geoweek. They initially look at that and talk to me about them being a competitor of ours. And now we're partners with them because we're continuing to pursue the same mission of build the community, spread awareness, spread education. There's so much room for growth in this industry. There's such a need for knowledge. There's such a desire for it from companies that are in the industry that there's just no need to look at it as competition. But you also have to be not only like think that way, but you do have to take actions toward backing that up too. Mm-hmm. So for instance, as the conference piece, right? We're not going to select the dates of our conference to be the exact same dates as their conference, right? Like if I want them to be successful, I have to think ahead of, okay, I want this to work collaboratively. So we're going to separate dates a little bit, or we're going to separate format, or we're going to, so even when you're looking at collaboration and not competition, you have to be willing to make some shifts and adjust and have integrity, be honest in how you operate with them in order for it to work. You can't go, hey, let's just collaborate, and then you go behind their back and talk to their client and steal it. And, and there's a lot of people that unfortunately have such a desire to own all of their market or all of that type of work that, I think that's why so many walls go up around the competitive piece, is that there are still individuals and companies out there that will do that to you. So it forces up some level of walls for people in their mind of like, no, I understand what you're saying about the collaboration, but I have to have these walls up because this one guy, came behind my back and stole. I've had that happen to me. But overall, even though there's been some of those hits because of people like that, they end up kind of falling out of the community, right? Or it becomes a known thing about that person and their character, and they do it to multiple people. They end up, that does worse for you.
Yeah.
You think that by doing that, you're winning something, but what it does long term is if you get a bad name for yourself because of that, you're going to end up closing your business. Mm-hmm. You will fail by having that competitive mindset and trying to steal from people. It does the opposite effect of what your intention with it is.
There's very much room for everyone to succeed.
It's been a fun morning chat, Phil.
Always.
We're going to have more ahead.